Okay, well, maybe we'll get started. I think most of you know me. I'm Amy, and my husband Chris is here tonight too. And we have known Leah since middle school. And we've always been friends, but our bond really took a turn when we both got diagnoses for our kids around within less than a year of each other that are both X-linked chromosome related. And so our kids' symptoms present very similarly. Her son has Cabeza syndrome, and ours are KDM5C, as you know, but the symptoms are very, very similar. And it's really bonded Leah and I, and for her to be a therapist that works a lot with people who are parents of kids with special needs is gives her a perspective that a lot of therapists don't necessarily have in our situation. So she's going to give us some tips and advice and kind of listen about things that we might need help with as far as special needs parenting and keeping your relationship intact during all of that. So welcome, Leah. We're so happy that you're here.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, you guys. Can everybody hear me? Okay. This is like this topic. First of all, hi, Amy, Chris. I love you guys. Thank you for having me. Laura, I see you. I'm so honored to speak about something that is like honestly near and dear to my heart. It's absolutely in my wheelhouse. Zoom is not in my wheelhouse. So, and I made a little presentation, which is also not my wheelhouse. So, like, forgive me. I'm getting over a cold. And like everybody right now. So also, if I'm a little foggy right now, I am just here to like give some support, give some guidance. Also, I really want to hear from you guys and what specific things that you might be struggling with, but to give some information in a bit of a broad way. When I was first like asked to do this, there is so much I could say on this topic, and I really had to narrow it down into some like bite-sized pieces that might be applicable to everybody. But definitely not one size fits all, and every relationship has its unique challenges, and every family has their unique challenges. So I just really want to make this like cooperative, a conversation where I'm giving some information, but I'm also really allowing for you guys to speak about like what's weighing on you. Also trying to kind of keep it to an hour because I think that's just, you know what? Listen, like what we have time for everybody. And makes a lot of sense. It says I'm speaking cancel. Um, okay, so with that, just gonna start by sharing my screen and sharing a little bit about me. Turning this on. Okay. First of all, let me just actually like while I'm kind of trying to figure this out, let me kind of check with the people that are here. You can either write it in the notes or if you just wanted to like unmute yourself and talk about a little bit about like um perhaps maybe sharing some of the challenges that you might be having that you'd like to see if we can like incorporate into our conversation today. Okay. Yay! Are we in action? Okay. So, first of all, um, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a therapist in um, out of San Juan Capistrano. So, I have two kiddos. I have Isla, who is 8. She's actually like trying out for her school play right now. I have Kai, who is 11, and he was diagnosed with an ultra rare genetic condition called Cabeza syndrome at age 3. So, what I'd like to really talk about, like starting off, is we all have a unique view of the way that we experienced our parenting. Um, to be honest, we have to look at this through the lens of trauma. I don't know what all of you have been through. I don't know, like, each of your individual experiences, but I can just honestly say we each, even just prior to diagnosis, we'll just start there, totally hell trying to figure out what is going on with my kid. What, how do I advocate for my child? What are the symptoms that we're experiencing? How do we get a diagnosis? How do we get answers about that? That's challenging enough. Then we have all the symptomology, the experiences of struggling with fragile medical issues. So we do have to look at our experience through the lens of trauma. And I'll explain why that's important in our relationship as we go on. But that's one of the things that I really want to like put into focus right now is just being able to um, see that our experience is unique in the fact that we are constantly trying to parent while under a lot of traumatic stress and the ways that that can affect us that are very different from just neurotypical parenting. How we can deal with that through self-care and regulation, skills and tools for how we get through tough conversations and disagreements, which I think is just tools that are very straightforward and can be helpful for any couple, but much less I'm trying to like use it through a lens of the specific things that we all have to navigate that are um, sometimes not things that we all see eye to eye on and that we're under a lot of stress and like dealing with um, trying to navigate that individually as well as trying to support each other. And then what we can hope to get to is just opportunities to build that lasting connection. So, aside from the things that we're dealing with on a day to day basis, aside from the intense pressures and stresses that we are trying to navigate, these opportunities to build and support one another through this journey of parenting. So, we all are just trying to kind of muddle through. Oh, also, my love language is memes. So basically, I'm going to use a lot of like corny memes in this. I hope you guys can appreciate. I also use a lot of dark humor at times, and I hope that that's okay. I think that our humor gets us through, and that that's part of what I'm hoping we can like support one another in um, just being able to like have some levity to the experience. Um, so just kind of going through trauma is defined as a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. I think all of us can relate to this on at some level. Um, again, from the beginning, when you are trying to parent a child that has challenges that are unexpected. We all sort of start off with a idea in our mind of what we think parenting is going to be like. And it ends up being something very different than what we expect. We see delays. We see my son's situation is very similar in that um, there weren't a lot of um, like markers that you would think that would be related to a genetic disorder, like really very early on. The delays started happening like gradually, and then we started to see this as a problem. But through that, there was a lot of distress, and we didn't have all of the medical issues that we had until a little bit later on, where about what was he, age 7, he started having severe seizures. We had to go in ambulances a couple of times. All of that is stuff that we navigate on a daily basis that does create that experience of trauma. Recognizing that in ourselves, and I'll give you some information in the next slide, it shows up in behavior, mood, and physical, is really crucial for us to recognize like what's happening in ourselves when that's occurring, the trauma response. So that's like a stress response. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We all know like how that looks. It's kind of like talking points. I think in general, everybody has familiarity with it at this point. But the ways that it presents in our day-to-day life can look very different than just like I'm trying to fight, I'm trying to, I'm frozen. We can start to feel like we're in a fog, we can feel really shut down, we can feel exhausted. So the reason that we really want to like look at this through this lens is to create that grace for ourselves and in our relationship, and the compassion for our unique experience. And this is just what gets us through day to day. So this is what we are looking at when we're talking about trauma. And people can experience trauma really differently, and it's okay. This can be a sticking point when we're talking about a relationship where somebody in the relationship our partner may have experienced something very different than us, and it doesn't make sense. Or we feel frustrated, hurt, or kind of like confused about the way that our partner may be experiencing something that has happened um, in the experience of trauma as related to our child. Um, that's something important to recognize, that we have different ways of processing, and that these things are very normal, and that if we can see them in ourselves and we can see them in each other, then we can take some of the sting out of taking it personally, like why are they experiencing this way? Why are they acting this way? A lot of times, this, especially in a healthy relationship, this can just purely be things that we um, can identify that we're trying to just muddle through. We are. We're all trying to freaking muddle through. So, this all off, but like you can see in this slide, range. There's a huge range of the way that people can experience this. So maybe some of the things that you can see on this slide might be things that you experienced. Maybe you can like identify this as a way that your partner has experienced the things that you've gone through in your journey with your child. And I mean, let's just put aside too, we have some of us, um, some people have more than one child who has a condition. Some of us have one child that has the condition. Some of us have a child that is also neurotypical. So there is a huge wide range of ways that we're experiencing our parenting, and to like check in with each other about what you see when these things are happening with mood, behaviors, and physical changes. You're realizing we've reached a threshold. We need to really be able to take care of ourselves and each other, and that takes priority over everything. So I put this slide in. I love this poet, Young Pueblo. Before I could release the weight of my sadness and pain, I first had to honor its existence. I think kind of like what I showed in that last slide with like Rambo, we muddle through. We are faced with such massive challenges day to day that we just muddle through. And a lot of times don't stop to take the time to say, I have a real difficult time right now with what I'm experiencing. And it's a lot. And to acknowledge that in yourself and in your partner is really important. Um, it allows for you to connect to that compassion and that grace both within yourself and in your partner, which is really important for the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So I just added that in because I think it's really poignant to make sure that we're not just dredging through each day, kind of in that fog that can happen, that we take that time to honor what's happening for ourselves, and that it's really kind of crazy and shitty at times. So, checking in with what we do when we are seeing those trauma responses um, in ourselves, and that's part of that, like, kind of going backing onto that last slide. um, Slow down for a second and be able um, to give ourselves that moment, to give ourselves moments in the day where we're able to check in with ourselves and check in with our partner, and to allow for some of these emotions to come up. It's not going to be all the time. We have to like live our lives. We have to work. We have to take care of the kids. But recognizing when you're doing things that might be shutting yourself down to cope in a negative way that isn't really supporting yourself and your relationship, and being able to like just sit with your experience. So consciously prioritizing yourself and your relationship, we can get so hyper focused on what's happening with our kids, and that's very real. That's real even in a neurotypical family where there's not even the issues that we all are dealing with. We can tend to prioritize our kids before ourselves. So it really has to be a conscious shift. It really has to be a focus, a refocus of your what you know is important, and to sustain the health of yourself, your relationship, and your family. It's that like corny saying, you can like put the oxygen mask on yourself first before your kids. I don't know, everybody always says that, but it really is true. You have to make sure that you are taking care of the unit of yourself and your partner, and then you're going to be in better shape to be able to support your child and your children. um, Recognize that what you might be experiencing is grief at times. This is from the book, Not What I Expected. It's a wonderful book. I'll put some resources at the ends of books that you guys can check out. But that when we have a child with a diagnosis, we really are looking through the lens of grief at times, and grief isn't linear. It is a series of expression, and different things can trigger different parts of that. So we at times can be angry, depressed, bargaining, like, if I only did this, if I only changed their diet, maybe that would help. Um, Coming to acceptance. And you'll go through this at different times. So, like, recognizing that this is what might be occurring at different times in your relationship, and that you're going to be seeing it through the lens of grief. Um, Develop a self care routine that's non negotiable. To be honest, I'm not going to go into self care routine a lot today. This is one of those areas where you can find tons of ideas on online, TikTok, Instagram. There's a lot of like great support for that you can find, and just turning to the things that you know about yourself, like making sure that those things are prioritized. And this is the bigger thing in your relationship. Self-care is supported and encouraged by supporting your own and one another's needs. It's an absolute baseline for survival. So when you hear those cues for yourself, that like, I'm really struggling right now, I may have gotten off of my routines for taking care of myself. If you see that your partner is struggling, like when I start to really shut down, become a total asshole in my relationship, Jason says, go to yoga class. Did you go to yoga class today? And it's usually like, no, I haven't gotten in a couple weeks. So I check in with that. I know some of my loves out there do Peloton. There's tons of um, resources and apps and everything. So just find what works for you. Find those things that like have worked for you in the past and just lean into that. And make sure that each of you respects one another's self-care so that like you are checking in with one another about what's necessary to just keep on going day to day. So witness for yourself and another and each other if the stress threshold has been surpassed, and encourage extra self-care. So beyond what you're regularly doing, and when there may be a need to seek professional support. And this is a slide that is actual screenshot of me. So I'm not always the best about self-care. This is a practice. It's not perfect. There's going to be times when you're really dialed in, you're drinking your water, you're doing your meditation. And there's going to be times where you're just like muddling through. There's not enough hours in the day. And so giving yourself that grace, giving yourself that I feel like there's an all or nothing sometimes perspective that we can have hold for ourselves where we start falling off and just like kind of go in a sideways like fall, like I'm just like letting it all go. And just always know that like this is once you get these routines for yourself for self-care, it's always accessible to you, and it can always be something that you can return to. Like you just start fresh in each moment, in each day, in each week, and it's always available to you. And so when it's needed, take it. So let me just check in. Are there any questions right now for what I just covered? I'm going to just look into the conversation. Balanced family with work, endurance, yes. I'm going to I will address some of those things. Okay. Okay. So giving some tools, you and your partner as allies, you have to see each other. We're in this dish together. So turning towards each other rather than away, seeing each other for being in this partnership together, being on this journey together. Jason and I joke a lot of times, like, sorry, we're stuck together. We're in this too deep. There's too much like going on in our family that we have to get through this. So knowing that you are valued, you value your partner, you're in this together. You get through this together. Team Us is like the attitude that gets through the difficult times. And I think in every single day to day, you look at it from that scope of it's us. It's us. It's us against the world, even maybe. Like we're in this. You're like my ride or die. Attuning, checking in with one another. Am I too hyper focused on my child? Am I too hyper focused on kind of just like what I'm needing to do to get through day to day? Can I attune a little bit more to my partner and see and kind of like see what they're going through? Recognizing when stress from your parenting journey is being taken out on your partner. This is really challenging. We have to be able to like have an honest like assessment within ourselves and be able to speak to that with one another. A lot of times I can kind of like see I'm just like coming out of the gate, like being really like a massive bitch, perhaps even sometimes. And I'll kind of like take a step back and think what happened in my day, think about the meltdowns that my son had, think about like the struggles that it took just to like get through dinner time perhaps. And I start to realize like maybe this isn't about like something that my husband did. Maybe this is about something that I just need to say, this was a tough day. Can you just like check in with me for a second and have that moment that we can like just like allow for each other to express what's happening, and the reality of the difficulty that it is parenting a child that has, you know, mild to severe needs. Um, find and connect with your tribe beyond the relationship. It's important to have that connection, but our partner can't be everything for us. And when we expect them to be, is when we are let down because they can't be. We are feeling like they're not showing up for us in the way that we want to when it might not be possible for them. So we have to find the people that can fit into the way that we strategize our experience of our family. And that can be friends, neighbors, church for some people, support groups for some people. If you have access to respite resources, just being able to use those things. Just one quick second. My dog is scratching at my door, and I'm going to let her out.
Real life with balance, right?
Real life. I'm also just like in my room, I have a sitter who's helping me with kids right now. And this is the reality. Um, so any questions? Like, let me just like kind of pause really quick. I'll just like check in and kind of see where you guys are at with this. Or I can just continue. Is it good? Okay. So let's go into just some tools. Can you guys still see um my screen?
Nope, now it's just you.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about like the divine pause when we're discussing um issues that come up in our relationship. I mean, honestly, this can be used when we are um, struggling with stuff that's happening with our kids, and kind of just in life in general. We start feeling in our body, we're triggered by whatever it is. Just being able to take a second to regulate, to breathe, and remember you have choices and options about how you want to respond rather than react like how we would do on autopilot. And this is where, like, I mean, I could talk about this for an hour about our reactivity, and where that comes from, and family of origin stuff, all of that. But honestly, it's just a skill that you can cultivate to start to check in with how you're feeling and be able to get ahead of that reactivity like the second before it would start. And if you can do that, you're already allowing for your brain to think in a different way. It's almost like creating new neural pathways, this kind of buzzword, but the reactivity is sort of that autopilot that we're just used to, the way that we're used to engaging in things that trigger us. And we want to start to allow for our brain to take kind of a breath before we go into that same pattern of the way that we always react. So when we can check in with ourselves before that moment where we cross that threshold and we start to get just like really pissed off or reactional, then we have so many options available to us before our brain sort of shuts down and the amygdala starts firing and everything starts going sideways. you have options. And so if you can give yourself that moment and just, it's like, I actually talked to some of my clients like who have really young kids and like watch Daniel Tiger. There's songs about kind of like taking deep breaths, taking a moment, counting. It's really simple and it seems sort of almost like almost too simple. But just using some of these tools and tricks can really help with the way that you start off in your interaction with the trigger with your family member, with your partner, and just allowing for yourself to have choices before that all shuts down and everybody starts going sideways. And I'll talk a little bit about what happens if that's already crossed in a minute. Using this. Okay. So, fighting fair, techniques to cool the flames. When you guys might be in already in a situation that is causing conflict between you two, being able to use techniques for fighting fair can just be really supportive. It's like a ground rules. I honestly think, and I'll again with these resources that I'm giving you, there's a lot of like kind of checklists and stuff like that. Even printing these out, if fighting fair is a challenge for you guys, print this out and put it somewhere. Like put it up where an area where you might fight the most often, and um, keep these things in the forefront of your mind so that it's available to you when things start to get heated and we're already kind of shutting down in the ways that we think about fighting. We need this stuff to be available to us so that we can really return to it and say, am I checking in with our agreements about fighting fair? So really quickly kind of going through it, make sure your startup is soft rather than harsh. Listen to your partner by reflecting and asking clarifying questions. Learn to use repair attempts. I'll talk about that more in a second. Monitor your own what's happening in your body. So checking in for those signs of flooding. How am I getting too riled up? Is my heart beating fast? Am I like, gripping my teeth? Do I feel like I'm tight in the chest? And check in with your own cues. You'll learn about that more as you practice this. So it isn't easy the first few times, but if you're really taking accountability for what's happening for you, you check in with yourself and then you do your best to self soothe and soothing each other. I'll also get into that more in a second. Know that compromise is likely necessary. So recognizing like I'm not necessarily going to get my way, there is going to be a compromise here that's important, especially when we're talking about things involving our kids, how we're going to have differences of opinion, how there's going to be a lot of outside information that we have to navigate, and that we're really going to need to come to terms with the fact that it's going to look a lot more like compromise than one person getting their way. Become tolerant of each other's imperfections and limitations. So, like, really recognizing each other's, a better way to say this is recognizing each other's strengths and what each other is good at. And then, if there's something that isn't a strength, can the other person take that on? And remember, no one's right. There's always two subjective sides. These are just some quick little like tips for difficult conversations. Complain, it's okay. It's going to happen. You're going to complain. It's going to be like stuff that is brought up that isn't pleasant. But try to keep blame and contempt and criticism out of the way that you approach your partner. So that soft warm up, that kind of soft start is like, hey, I have something I wanted to just check in with you about. I really appreciate the way that you've been handling this stuff, but I have something that I need to add to the conversation that is frustrating me, and I'm hoping we can come together and like come to a conclusion about it. If you're starting off with some warmth and some direction for the conversation rather than like criticism or contempt, then your partner is going to be a lot more available for what you have to say than if you were to start off like, you always do this. I can't believe you couldn't see this about like what's going on. And so checking in with like, I feel and I need. So like the good old I statements that I think we're all kind of familiar with, like starting with like, this is the way I feel about this, and describing what's happening without you having to like necessarily like add your evaluation into it or your judgment of the situation. So being able to say, I saw this happening. This is how I felt about it. And then allowing for that conversation to happen between the two of you. Being clear and positive about what you need is a great way to shape the conversation, especially if you're really trying to get your needs met. Um, it's kind of like that. You can get more honey, more flies. Is that what it is? Flies with honey than vinegar, whatever. Like that. That's the way that we want to think about approaching difficult conversations with our spouse, our partner. So being positive as much as we can, being polite as we would to anybody that we would be having these conversations with, appreciative about the things that have happened that are good. Don't store things up and sweep it under the rug. But this is also second part to that. Don't store things up and sweep it under the rug. Is that sometimes there is the reality that we need to take a break in these conversations. So noticing when you or your partner is getting flooded, which means I'm overwhelmed, I'm starting to like shut down, or I'm starting to get like escalated. Those can be two opposites, but you know your partner best. Probably one of you is like maybe one that gets escalated, maybe both of you, maybe one of you shuts down and the other one that escalates. So checking in with yourself, how do you exit those conversations so that you can soothe yourself and each other? And if you don't know what to do in that moment, then ask. I can see you're starting to shut down, or I can see this is getting escalated. Should we take a break and come back to this later? And then do set a time so it doesn't get swept under the rug, and stick to it. Like 20 minutes is the minimum for your body to start to regulate again. So like take at least that time. It could be later in the day, but it's important for you to be able to come back to the conversation. Um, these are the ways that you can soothe yourself when you are feeling flooded. Change your environment. Go outside if possible. Go into a different room. Get yourself out of that situation as quickly as possible so that you're not just like getting that tunnel vision that happens when that stress response comes in and you're starting to maybe shut down. Use box breathing, which is you breathe in. You kind of do this. I do this in the car, even with my daughter. So you breathe in like 5 seconds, hold, breathe out, hold. And you do this several times until you're feeling a little bit more regulated in your body. Use your senses to come back into your body. This is that flight or dissociation response that comes when we get too heated in a fight, too overcome by our emotions. We want to get back into our body. So we think about, what can I see? What can I hear? What can I smell? If you have taste, like grab a piece of gum, whatever. What can I feel? So like I feel that there's like a soft blanket under me. I feel my shirt that feels like comfy and cozy. So checking in with your senses so that you can come back into your body. Because once we've like gotten that escalated, we're sort of shut down in our nervous system and we need to come back. Use a meditation app and find a 5-minute one that you can do really quickly. This Peloton app is great for that. Little sidebar. Do a quick stretch. also great for an app. Cuddle a pet. Something really very cool is splashing water and submerging your hands in ice water. This is like something that has been like now very kind of put forward in the way that we can regulate ourselves through like cold therapy. Progressive muscle tightening and relaxation. There's a bunch of YouTubes about it. Laugh, finds like maybe finds like have like a YouTube channel that you like to watch something funny. I like SNL skits for that. Like I have some that I have saved just like when I need to laugh in a quick moment. Feel it and let it move through you. So this is kind of the concept of letting emotions be without grasping it. So we think about it like clouds in the sky. We wouldn't push away a cloud, we wouldn't grasp a cloud, we just watch them go by. So like if we can allow for ourselves to just witness our feelings rather than being too overwhelmed by them, we can just be the observer in our situation rather than taking it really personally. And most importantly, is that any of these things can be done together. So you can say, you know what? Do we want to go do a quick like stretch together? Do we want to go outside and take a walk together if that's available? Let's do the breathing together. Any of those things can be done together if it's appropriate, if you're feeling like that could be helpful. But sometimes you just need to do those things on your own. And that's also really like valuable to like recognize and to allow for the other person to have their own moment too. And that's totally okay. So if that's the case, don't try to like grasp them into like, no, I wanted to do this together. Just say, hey, you do you, I do me, and we can regroup at the time that we designated. What is that? So this is just like we all can be really deeply in our feelings, just especially there's usually in a relationship one person who breaks more quickly than the other, one person who's more willing to um, apologize more quickly, to want to fix things, to want to be the peacekeeper. If that is not you, I challenge you to be the one to let go and check in first with yourself and say, why am I holding on to this? What is my goal here? Is this a power struggle that I feel like if I let something go, I'm not going to be nothing's going to change. Um, they're going to get the best of me. All the things that you might think in your mind as thoughts for the reason that you don't um, just let yourself um, make that repair. So if you're the one who has a difficult time, just check in with yourself and figure out what is my main goal here. And if the main goal is to be having a healthy, supportive relationship, remember that and humble yourself and make that repair. So one of the bigger things too is accepting the bids of repair. Fighting and tension are going to happen. If it needs to be discussed further, go through the steps of fighting fair. But if it doesn't, be able to be willing to let it go. Be aware of the ways you personally keep a fight going, such as stonewalling, like shutting somebody out, silent treatment, throwing out vibes. We all know what that feels like when our partner's throwing out vibes and it's kind of like sucking the air out of the room. So just being aware of your own self and the way that you keep a fight going and be willing to check in with yourself. Why am I doing this? What is my motivation here? Be willing to make the repair either through a sincere apology, reflecting on your understanding of what your partner's grievance is. Humor is a big one. Obviously, I love my memes. I love to let things go. I really like when there's humor used in a repair moment. That means a lot to me because I can just kind of like, even if I'm grumpy about it, I can kind of start to laugh and kind of roll my eyes, whatever. And touch for some people is really supportive. Like just kind of like doesn't mean like necessarily grabbing each other, like, but just being able to like touch one another, like grab a hand, touch your arm, and kind of like give a little like pat, whatever. Be willing to accept attempt of repair. It is super important, even if you're just like this little otter and you're still mad, but you're just like accepting it. Be willing to accept the attempt of repair without dragging it back in the trenches, even if you're still a little annoyed. So like, don't use that to like, if your partner's still trying to have repair and you're still mad, don't be like, okay, thank you for your apology, and then bring it back in. Just accept the influence rather than digging in your point. This is a big part of that conflict resolution that is going to get you through those times that it's challenging to soften around one another and just move on. Then we're getting to this part about building the lasting connection. So I want to like I'll just kind of like check in with you guys after this because this is just like one more layer. Like we got through some of the things that can kind of like get in between us and how to navigate that. This is something that is always in the background. Those are those difficult times. This is the constant, like, I have eyes on this. Um, so building that lasting connection is nurture your fondness and admiration for one another constantly, like maintaining and cultivating respect for one another and acknowledging and honoring one another's worth and strengths and talk about them. So the things that you like in one another, say it. I think a lot of people see those things, but we talk way more about our grievances about one another than we say the things that we see our partner doing right. And if you're thinking about this from a behavioral lens, the things that we enforce are the things that are our strengths, and the things that we have acknowledged. So talk about the things you like, and they will be reinforced. We have a choice in what we see and amplify in our relationship. Appreciation and gratitude. So see what's good and say it. Don't hold back because you're still mad about the bad. Make micro moments of connection happen each day. And when I say micro, I mean micro, but make them happen. So, like, we are all maxed out. We all have so much stuff going on day to day. We are parenting in very extreme situations. We are like a thousand browser windows open at once. But if we can make those micro moments happen every day, I have an example of this, and this is actually not about my husband. This is about an ex-boyfriend a long time ago, but he used to bring a flower with my coffee every day. And I always think about this as a flower with the coffee moment. How can I find a way to just show that I'm giving a little bit extra in my attention to you? And like, literally, how hard is it to like add a flower with a coffee? But like, that's one example of what's meaningful to me. Something that's just like, I'm going to make your day a little more beautiful. We all have those things we know that our partner could appreciate. And if we can do even a tiny little thing each day, that can make a world of difference in the way that we experience each other and feel important in each other's lives. Find an agreed upon time each week to have check-ins, and it should be timed so it's not just going into infinity. Have an agenda to discuss and problem solve and stay on track. At the end of the time, have something pleasant planned, and it can be small and symbolic, like enjoy, your favorite like beverage together, or like I don't know, whatever it is for you guys, like have a little small thing that like is something that you can look forward to. So this is like the antithesis of feeling like you're up on each other all the time. If somebody feels like I'm being nagged or somebody feels like I'm always nagging, this gives an opportunity to have time to talk about the things that are going on without that feeling of like I'm going through each day nitpicking, and feeling nitpicked and feeling like torn down. So it's just like really solution focused and stays on track. Next, sex is obviously awesome, but with kids with extra needs to care for, it can leave us touched out, like that feeling like I have not any more of my own like physical body to give. So get creative about touch, intimacy, and pleasure beyond sex. Be able to have times that you have intimacy through emotional intimacy through touch that isn't necessarily like sex focused. If it leaves the sex cool, but like just really knowing that you can get creative and broad with the way that you experience intimacy in your relationship. And that's really very personal to each of you and like something fun to explore, hopefully. So just remembering we can like see each other still like with a lot of what we first felt in the beginning of our relationship and keep that energy going. Try to find moments of connection, pleasure, even when timing is difficult. I think I already said that in the last slide. Remembering and seeing one another as an individual and partner, not just a parent, especially when we are feeling just like super torn down in our parenting journey. What's attractive, cute, sensual, sexy, funny, unique, playful, yours together that makes your relationship special. Keep that in focus. Like think of the heart eyes emoji. Um, Remembering that like this is kind of team us vibes. Like you guys have something that brought you together that is uniquely yours. Lean into that, like remember it when you're feeling just like I don't really even remember who I am. Make sure that you hold that space for yourself and each other, to like not just be that like rare parent, that like can take over our whole person at times. Um, as much as it will occupy you in the reality of it, don't let the diagnosis and day-to-day grind take away what is essential about you and your connection with one another. Speaks to the last point. Mindfulness above all, seek common meaning in the moments together rather than rushing to distract or tune out. No one is a mind reader, but also see the need and fill the need for one another when possible. So like I think that this goes a long way and this kind of connects to the next point. Showing effort over perfection is everything. After this talk today, I think what would be awesome for you guys to have a conversation about is how can we, what did we get out of this? And how can we really make this commitment to prioritizing each other, ourselves and each other in this like relationship? And I heard from countless couples, like every single couple that I see in my practice, if you show the effort, it is everything. It's not about like, I expect perfection from my partner. If you can see that they're making an effort, this is where it goes back to like seeing it, saying, like, I appreciate, I can see how you're making changes, but you have to really be like committed to showing up and showing that effort, even if it's just, again, those really small things. It can go such a long way in really being able to like share that experience of sorry, I'm trying to find you guys again. Try shut my screen sharing up. Oh, I have one more slide. Sorry. That experience of like enjoying one another and beyond the day-to-day grind. There's it is resources. So here's some resources. I'll put they're here, but I also want to like see if I can share my slides so that you guys can see um, the things that I've talked about today and revisit them. And these are just some books that I really enjoy that Fair Play is one that really helps if some of the challenges in your relationship are about like um, mental load, domestic, um, shared domestic tasks. It really helps to see what everybody's doing and the things that are like needed in the household and to delegate that where people's strengths are. And I really like it for that. It's nice to have that conversation. So those are my resources. And now how do I like go back? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back. Hopefully. Let's unmute and see where everybody's at with this. Like, I don't know, maybe like Amy, do you want to just start like kind of with a check-in with um any questions? Maybe do like a quick question.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe like,
I think this was awesome. A lot of very helpful tips. I mean, like the fighting fair and all that and what was it when you're trying to make up and all those kind of things. Very, very helpful. So thank you. And I'm hoping that we can get this slideshow from you so we can share it with our group. But this was wonderful. Thank you.
yes.
Yeah.
Anybody have questions? Like, feel free to try to like, how do I like stop screen sharing? You guys, I'm like so lame. It's embarrassing. Um, so yeah, just share with me like what you guys like anything that you might have for questions, like anything that's kind of coming up. I can give maybe like 5 minutes to talk.
Well, it looks like there was a question in the chat from John that said, can we introduce how to balance family with work-related matters? I know that that's hard,
Yeah.
especially with our kids'
Okay.
needs.
Is there something specific like sharing work life balance? What let me know maybe like is there like a little more something specific?
I don't know. I just read it from the chat. John, if you want to respond to
John,
that or
I think you hit one of my biggest personal crash points, whereas this loss of the just general busyness of the day just steamrollers you. And by the time you get home, you're running on fumes, and that space between you is bigger than when you woke up, just because of the busyness. And then you go rinse, repeat next day, and that space accumulates if you don't tend to it. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's it's like we can get kind of hyper focused on the day-to-day
the grind.
um
Yeah,
grind.
yeah.
And I mean, again, this is like it's real in any relationship, it's real in any family system, but we have that added stress of those thousand browser windows that have to be open at any point in time of navigating our unique situations with our kids' symptoms, conditions, and all of that. So it is that real feeling of like, I have to make this a conscious part of my priorities. I have to, like, again, kind of like going off of the back of this conversation today, like, you guys go into your relationships, consciously have these conversations about how do we reprioritize our relationship in the context of what's happening in our day-to-day grind. And I really do feel like that's it has to be things we continue to talk about all the time, and we can see those warning signs that we're starting to kind of slide back, and that's okay. It's okay. Like, this isn't a continuum. This isn't like, or we're always going to have forward progress. We have to like know that about what's happening and have some compassion about it, and we have to be able to say it's okay, and we can restart, and we can always start that new and start that fresh again, um, with the next minute, with the next breath, with the next hour, with the next like week. We will continue to choose each other and make that a priority, and ourselves, because we also get very lost in that day to day. So it has to be, that's why I like the idea of micro. Like, listen, it's nice to go, we want these giant changes to happen in our relationship and ourselves, but if we can just, I can't even tell you how much tiny little moments of saying, I have eyes on you. I'm doing this little tiny thing to show you I see you. those are the things that matter and are very lasting in their tiny little ways that they add up. So I don't want anybody to think that that's something that's too small to make a difference, because it really isn't. It really makes all of that adds up to really feeling like that reconnection is there in the day to day, without like putting too much pressure on yourselves to like, it's almost like those New Year's resolutions we make and like it all goes fucking sideways because it's like too much to keep up. We have to like make it think like, what can I do? Tiny little shifts each day. Let me just
You said a few things that really hit home for me. One was, looking through the lens of grief, because often I feel like you're like grieving the loss of like what you thought it was going to be like, or you thought your daughter would be going to college or driving or getting married, or whatever those things are. But it's like this you're going through all these different phases in it, and it's grieving all over again all the time.
yes. Thank you so much for pointing that out. And that book, Not What I Expected, is a really beautiful like look at how grief does affect our day to day, and that there's moments that we might think I've totally accepted this, like my kids are teenagers, they're young adults, but like you're still feeling those moments that are going to still bring up like sadness, anger sometimes, like bargaining, like how do I like make this different? And then we kind of find that acceptance again. So I think the most important thing is that like in grief, we really do need especially to lean into one another, into the people that we are like are our tribe, our support system. You guys have an amazing support system with your foundation, amongst other people. Just being able to really we can tend to like feel very lonely in that journey, feel very alone, and feel like actually, because other people are celebrating those milestones in a different way than we ever will, that we want to maybe pull back, withdraw from the people that be our external support system. But that's really when we need to like know those people that we can lean on, and that we can continue to like open up to and have as that support. Because I do know that that's a huge thing for all of us, is I just want to isolate. This is such an isolating experience of parenting that it can feel like tempting to just shut down and isolate when we're feeling too much of that overwhelm. And so really being able to recognize when that happens and checking in with ourselves, is it okay for me to maybe take a break, but not completely withdraw? And who can I turn to that I'm not completely pulling away from everybody and everything? Because we all know that that's not going to help us in getting to a place that feels healthy and supported.
And
Thanks,
kind of
Laura.
along those lines with, the not what I expected. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about, we had always looked forward to retirement and traveling and doing all these things. And now, a lot of our friends are either empty nesters or about to become empty nesters and making all these plans. And it's like, our retirement's going to look very different. We're going to be caring for Gabby in some capacity. We don't know how much yet, but, that's going to be the case for pretty much all of our families. And
Mhm.
very hard to kind of figure that out. Like, so this is going to be three of us and forever, not two of us. So.
Exactly. It's, and that's where that, like, all that grief can come into play too. Like, freaking angry about that. I worked hard. I want that life too. I mean, the sadness, the like, all of those things that we recognize as the emotions. And this is where, if we're internalizing this, if we don't express this within our relationship, we I mean, and with other people that are supportive, but like especially together, like we don't want one another to be the dumping grounds for like all of our anxiety, but we also, that's where we need those other supports. But we also need to really be able to have those like difficult conversations in that capacity and say like, no, this sucks, this like this is shitty, and I really just need us to like kind of sit with that for like a minute together and be there for each other. And that availability, like to hold space for those difficult realities is tough. And again, like this is like where I say, like, we're in the reality is if we can all navigate this together in a relationship, we're so much better off, because that's the truth is this is lifelong. And we're like was laughing about, like, with my comment about what I say with Jason, like, we're stuck with each other, you bro. Like, sorry, but like we're stuck together because like you want to go do this on your own. No, nobody does. So like we're way better to like put this relationship in focus and really be able to attend to it, than to really, like, suffer what a lot of people do. And the reality of this is, which is like separating, divorce. And I mean, that's not something I wanted to focus on in this conversation, but we all know that those are real truths for, all the things that we are navigating as, parents with children with a diagnosis like this. So, knowing that and being able to choose the priority is like of one another, of like, if we're better together, it's everything.
I might pause real quick just to do our drawing for the $100 gift card for
Yeah,
self-care or date or whatever, just in case anyone needs to drop off. So I put all the
and we
names
can come in right
in a bowl. So of course,
They're all my name.
Miriam, you win the $100 gift card, so we'll mail that to you. Okay.
Oh my goodness, I never win anything.
Well, you did today. It's a good one.
I'm not presentable to be on camera, but I love this presentation. Thank you, Leah, so much.
Thank you, Miriam. I'm so grateful you were here, and thank you for letting me speak to you guys. It meant so much to me too.
It's really been wonderful. I feel like we could almost do this and check in every 4 or 6 months or something, and maybe tackle a different subject, because
I actually was totally going to say, like, I was like, I could talk about like any one of these points I put in these slides and kind of rushed around. I was like, I could talk about any of this, like, for like, and bringing in more conversation from you guys about like what, that specific question from John, like that work-life balance, like, those kind of things are very real, but they're also very personal. They're personal and universal. So like if we can kind of like be able to talk about these different kinds of topics and how to support them, I do really feel like it can be supportive for. I'm happy to come back anytime you guys would have me. It's been wonderful.
Great. So many good reminders and things to consider. And I mean, like you were saying, micro efforts, like Chris and I try to send each other little memes or I love you texts, throughout the day, just little touch points, even if we can't get away for a date night, it's a lot of...
Why is there no gas in this car?
Yeah. Maybe I need to refuel. Okay, I'll let you guys go to your evenings. Thank you so much
Thank you,
again.
Leah.
I
Thank
will
you.
like try to figure out how to share the slides too. And like, please follow up with any questions. Also, Amy, if there's things that people are like coming to you with any questions, or Laura, like, just let me know. I can always see if there's other resources that I can provide, just to give some extra support to people that need it, because it sometimes can be hard to find that on your own.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Good night.
Night.
Okay.